Hello and welcome. This is the Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Chani Nicholas. I have an exciting announcement. Starting today, you can get early access to our brand new 2024 products, including our 2024 Astro Planner and guidebooks. These limited edition bundles will go fast, so check them out at chani.com. That's chani.com. In this episode, we are talking about the week of October 2nd. This week and next week are going to ask us to go through a major rebalancing in our life. In some way, shape, or form, something has gotten a little heavy on one side of the scales or a little too light on the other. And this week and next week, there is a need to reassess. And there's a need to let go of some things, many things. There is a need to make some major or minor readjustments. But we know that sometimes it is the most minor of readjustments that can help us come into balance. It's like we just need to move like a little to the left or a little to the right to be in our center. And this week's astrology and next week's astrology is reflecting that kind of need for a readjustment. And it's through releasing something that it's going to happen. It's through kind of like laying down our sword, laying down our weapons, perhaps, laying something down that maybe we've held too tightly onto. There is a need to see who we are and what we could make space for if we let go of one thing or another. And it's going to be really personal, obviously, to each one of us. So I kind of get annoyed when we talk about letting go, because you're like, what does that mean? Like, how do we actually do that? But then when the time comes, you're like, oh no, I really do need to let this go or set it down. And you can kind of think of this time period, this week and next week, as really important times to just set things down. Like, you don't have to let things go. That can require like a little too much trust in life for some of us. And it can honestly like promote or agitate our anxiety in some situations. So instead of like letting go or thinking about letting things go, if that seems too like extreme for you, just think about setting something down and reminding yourself you can always pick it up. So if it's a worry, if it's a role, if it's a relationship dynamic, if it's especially something about anger or something about getting agitated or something you're getting agitated about, you might try just setting it down. Imagining that you could just place it in the hands or in the lap of some greater entity, of some greater energy that has all of the problem-solving skills in the universe. And just say, I'm just going to leave this with you. I'm just going to set this down here for a moment and see if that helps the situation. See if that helps me come back into balance. I can always pick it up. I can always, carry that luggage for as long as I want to. Or I might even consider like shifting things around. Maybe I don't have to carry all of it. Maybe I do want some of it. Maybe I don't want all of it. And this week and next week really encourages the signs in the sky are saying, this is a great time to sort. This is a great time to parse out. This is a great time to do any and all kinds of cleansing rituals and routines. And this is why. This is the astrology of everything. We're moving into eclipse season. We are headed towards the first of two eclipses, and that eclipse is going to be on October 14th, so that's the end of next week. But this week, Mars goes over the point where eclipses happen. It goes over the south node, or one of the points where eclipses happen. And that signifies something that is connected to next week's eclipse. It signifies something that feels eclipsy in nature. And that just means there's something here to consider giving up, letting go of, or again, putting down for a moment and seeing if that helps the situation. Because Mars is the planet of energy and action and making a definitive decision to go in a certain direction, and it's coming into this conjunction, it's happening on Wednesday, by the way, with the South Node where eclipses happen, there's something about our energy that might feel like it's going in a different direction, right? There's a lot of downward type of energy. So it's not like fiery. It's not energized. It's not about making sure that we go, go, go. It's actually much more important to be like, I'm going to pause here. And again, I'm going to see how the scales in my life are balanced. What is in balance? What is out of balance? What could I redistribute, reconfigure, set down, give away, let go of, in order to regain some kind of balance, some kind of semblance of balance. And balance isn't, a one and done kind of situation. We need different types of rebalancing all the time, depending on the season, depending on our stress level, depending on how happy we are, depending on all these things. So there's no perfect here. It's not about like finally getting everything in balance, because that's a lie. It's a myth, and it will make us unhappy if we're trying to strive towards that. It's just about, at this moment, in this point in my life, in this point of the year, what needs to go, what needs to be like taken off. And because this is happening in Libra, there's a lot here about relationships. And we just went through this Venus retrograde that has been like so major over the course of June, July, August, even September, even though it stationed direct in the beginning of September. Venus has been in Leo since June. And actually this week it's finally leaving Leo. So it's been this whole section of 2023. So we've done a lot of work about relationships, and it's not over yet, because this next eclipse on October 14th and then the eclipse following that on October 28th are both eclipses ruled by Venus. The first one's in Libra, the second one's in Taurus. And so we're continuing the theme of relationship recalibrations. And there are many reasons this week and next for us to think about how we work through conflict, how we honor our anger, our rage, but how we don't let it burn through our connective tissue and our relationships, how we can not mute it in order to save the relationship or please everybody, but how we can also kind of redistribute it, right? So like I can vent over here in terms of how I need to like get my anger out so that I can be more neutral over here when I go to make sure that I'm working through a relationship conflict with a lot of honesty. So that might also be one of the themes of this week. Now, I'm doing this very backwards, and it took me a long time to get here. But if you want to know the like day-to-day of the astrology, let's do that. On Monday, there is a funky communication in the air. It feels like a very, very momentary Mercury retrograde. So Monday will feel a little confusing. Tuesday, things will clear up in terms of our communications. We'll be able to have an in-depth conversation that feels very satisfying. Wednesday, we are talking about the Mars South Node conjunction, which again is about a point of rebalancing, coming to understand something very important in our relationships. And it's just the beginning of a theme that we will work out far into next week. So this week and next week, we are thinking about what we are letting go of, what we're rebalancing, what our relationships are requiring us to do and not do. And then on Sunday, Mars will go on to square Pluto, which feels like a issue that comes up again in relationships. There's a point of friction in our relationships that has to do with our power and the dynamics and anything that's subterranean, that's kind of lurking in the shadows. So Wednesday is not a do this and then we figure it all out. Wednesday all the way into Saturday feels like some pretty hefty relationship dynamic material, stuff for us to understand, again, think about how we can rebalance the situation, but not deny the things that are lurking underneath, right? We're moving into eclipse season. There's a lot of shadowy material. It's a great time to do that type of work, like to not forego knowing your own stuff, like your own shadowy material that comes up and maybe feels humiliating in the moment to acknowledge, but is so important because it also has such potent information for us to understand about ourselves. So into the weekend feels a little like it goes deep, and there's something here about wanting to win, wanting to like lay it down, like lay our weapons down. And we're in this kind of struggle. We're in this kind of back and forth with like, how do I approach the situation? Do I go the peaceful route and negate my true feelings? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that this weekend. This is not a good weekend to pretend that you're okay if you're not. This is a good weekend to be radically honest with yourself and then figure out what you want to do with that information. Also on Wednesday, Mercury moves into Libra. So we're talking about justice. We're talking about balance. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about equity, unions, what is fair, what is not. That is the conversation. And that is the dynamic. That's the desire as well. So as we move to the end of the week, we've got that dynamic, very irritating Mars-Pluto square on Sunday, and then Venus finally leaves Leo. Hasn't left Leo, hasn't been in another sign since June. It's a long time for Venus to be in one sign. And Venus moves into Virgo. Now, Venus in Virgo is said to be in its fall because in the opposite sign of Pisces, Venus is said to be in its exaltation. And so what happens when Venus goes into its fall is there can often be some kind of story or scenario that we see played out in the world about that kind of situation. And the situation is a societal construct most of the time, right? So the fallen woman or the fallen, Venus, the archetypal kind of feminine, character, person. And so oftentimes when Venus moves from one place to another, from a sign that either it does really well in or is like a little bit more neutral in, to a place where it has a hard time in, we might see that playing out in the headlines. And so we might see people that are put into structurally challenging situations, those stories be brought up or those stories become much more prominent. And we're talking Venus, so we're talking women, we're talking femmes, we're talking LGBTQIA community members, we're talking about artists, we're talking about anyone who creates art and culture and stylists, like any of that, anybody who creates beauty and harmony. And we might also think about desire too. So on one hand, Venus in Virgo is like really hardworking, really detail-oriented, will get the job done, but definitely can put work ahead of pleasure. And Venus is the goddess of pleasure, the planet of pleasure. So it's like the pleasure principle might get turned down a little bit. We're going into eclipse season. They're both Venus ruled. So it feels like we have a lot of work to do, but this is another reason to make sure that we're countering that work with a lot of sweetness and a lot of connection and a lot of love, because it might not come as easily, but it doesn't mean we can't facilitate it. It doesn't mean that we can't be like, okay, well, this might be a little harder, so I'm going to make sure that I like fill myself up and make sure that I plan and make sure that I, get to my friend's birthday party and bring them their favorite flowers and bring myself some too. And make sure that we're facilitating that sweetness for ourselves, because it might feel like there's just a little bit of a lack of it. And it also is a gorgeous time, I will say, Venus and Virgo. It's a beautiful time to see the beauty in the places that feel like they've been relegated to being lower or not as good as. So it's like the beauty in things that are not exalted, that are not upheld in our society, or the beauty in people, the beauty in communities, the beautiful art and culture that is created from folks, from communities, from situations that are like a little down. They're a little like a kind of like a pothole almost. Like, okay, well, what goes on down there? What is the beauty down there? What is the richness that comes out of a situation that's not easy? So that's a Venus and Virgo kind of vibe. All right. Lots to do, lots to think about. And look, come back next week. We will be talking about that South Node eclipse in Libra. Until then, what you can do, if you want to know more about what this is meaning for you personally, you can listen to your weekly reading on the Chani app. And you can also look under the transit section and see if you have anything being transited in your chart by the South Node. It's gorgeous written explanations about that transit in the Chani app. And if you don't have anything that is being transited by the South Node, you can go and read your South Node in Libra horoscope in the Chani app under current sky horoscopes. Those are also beautifully written and really helpful. The South Node is going to be in Libra for about 18 months. So it just entered back in July. So we've got a minute with this, but this is, an eclipse that's happening here. This is Mars going over the eclipse point this week, next week, the eclipse. So we're starting to really kind of understand what this readjustment is asking for and the kind of cleanse that's needed now. Thank you all so much for leaving us reviews in the App Store. I wanted to leave you with this one called Chani and the Chani app have changed my life. Thank you so much for creating this wonderful platform. It has become the most efficient and useful tool for me the last several weeks. I've always dipped in and out of astrology, but this time it's hitting different. From the beginning of Venus going into Leo this summer, I have studied the themes highlighted for me and am finally understanding how to use my current sky horoscopes in order to live my life in the most authentic way possible. Thank you so much for changing my life in a beautiful way. All right, y'all. Sending you lots of love, many blessings. Bolster yourself with a lot of sweetness. Bye for now.